The PayPal of restaurants, supply chain challenges deep into 2022, and Toast IPOs. That's all ahead in this week's Monday Minute. Monday Minute works like this. We're going to ask each other 5 questions about some of the headlines from last week's news. So if you're ready, let's get on with it.
So restaurant payments company Sunday just raised $100 million, saying they want to be the PayPal of restaurants. Carl, what does easier payment functionality look like for restaurants?
Everything right now, Meredith, comes down to removing friction. And from the marketplace, the first-party discovery standpoint, through to drones, to doorstep tech. And what Sunday doing is the same, quite honestly. I always like to talk about the analogy on payment with regard to fast casual. Think about why fast casual has been so successful over these last few years, because it's combined ordering and payment processes into the same process itself, thereby reducing a component of labor from the restaurant operation. Now, Sunday uses the QR code not just to give access to a menu like many of us are used to seeing now, but also a platform for ordering and payment. And they believe that by doing that, that's empowering the customer to basically reduce the wait time for payment and being able to leave the restaurant. Sunday believes it saves about 14 minutes from the customer experience, which of course then allows restaurants to be able to improve the turn time as well. So each QR code is unique, as I understand it, to each table, integrates with the POS, allows you to be able to do all of this without having to download or create any account. And it's a neat idea, and I'm surprised we haven't seen more of this actually coming through in recent kind of months. So it's no surprise to me why they've received such a huge round of funding. I think it's going to go towards getting the word out to restaurants that there's a world out there beyond just a QR code menu. Okay, our second question is for you, and the big news I think this week was associated to Toast. They're the latest to IPO this year, and I'm curious, with the pressure of shareholders behind them, do you think this strategy of lose money on hardware is going to, and make money through the payment fees themselves, is going to satisfy the shareholders' kind of need for ongoing growth?
Yeah, there's been an amazing stream of IPOs this year in the restaurant world, Toast being the third after DoorDash and Olo. And taken all together, I think what that tells you is there's a huge opportunity in restaurants to make them more technologically enabled. It's an enormous industry, and making it operate more smoothly for both employees and consumers can only be a good thing. Now, as it relates to Toast specifically, yes, when you read through the S1, it looks like the goal is to make it up on payments later. And I think that is has a lot of potential lucrative profits associated with it. But Toast is a really interesting company because they also offer a lot of different modules, if you will, to help a restaurant run many different aspects of the restaurant in an all-in-one platform. And I think what's not clear right now is, are all those modules just to increase stickiness of the restaurants because they use it for so many different things that it would be hard to switch and, again, make money on the payments? Or over time, does Toast expect that they'll do sort of a land and expand strategy and end up making money through so many different aspects of running the restaurant that they'll have multiple revenue streams? I think that remains to be seen.
Either way, exciting times for a company that's very much behind helping the independent restaurants out there. So congratulations to everyone over at Toast this week for the IPO.
So Mark Rossi, the CEO of Avanti Restaurant Solutions, said we're at mile 11 of a marathon when it comes to the supply chain challenges that have been affecting the restaurant industry. So how do restaurants respond as he anticipates the challenge will continue well into 2022? And bonus question, Carl, do you agree? Is this all going to be resolved in 2022, or is this going to stay with us for a while?
It's a great question. It was a great podcast that Jonathan Mays put out with Restaurant Business. There's an ongoing kind of mixture of challenges affecting the supply of everything and anything at the moment, as we well know.
Yeah.
There's a shortage of containers. There's a backlog of ships out of most major ports. I've never seen the horizon of the ocean outside of LA here look as busy as it often has this year. And then there's a shortage of truckers. The truckers and the labor crisis that we're seeing is affecting the trucking industry. There are fewer trains, longer trains, but fewer amounts of trains actually then taking those containers out to where they need to go. And then, of course, the warehouses themselves are overloaded because of the growth of e-commerce. And Mark, in his podcast, was very articulate in explaining each of these things. And, he believes we're in for this kind of challenge to go well into 2022, potentially all the way through of next year. And, there's no reason to suggest why he's not right, because a lot of these things take a long time to sort through. And the world is adjusting back to trying to get to some kind of level of momentum that it was at before the pandemic. So what does this mean for restaurants? Well, three items come to mind. The first is the second-hand kitchen equipment market could actually become very handy to consider, certainly for replacement equipment manufactured outside the US. And I think that could be something which is really important for restaurants to consider taking advantage of if they're not already. The other thing which is also important is around proactive maintenance, recognizing that before things break and need a replacement, what can be done to actually proactively look after equipment so that it doesn't actually come to a place where it's a point of concern. And then the third is, if you're anticipating growth or unit expansion over the course of the next 9 to 12 months, then you're probably going to just have to plan in advance much further than you typically would. And that is a key factor, of course, for anyone that's trying to grow their business, which, who knows how many folks are doing that right now, but it's certainly an opportunity to be mindful of. And then, of course, consumables. Consumables are also affected, and being mindful of not wasting those unnecessarily. Making sure that your ordering channels are set up in such a way so that you're not automatically giving away things like napkins and plastic forks and cutlery, etc., with every order, but allow the customer to opt in to receiving them. So there's a number of things out there that are going to cause these challenges, and I think restaurants are going to just have to continue to adapt, quite honestly. Okay, another really interesting question that for you from a news article this week. I saw that Subway have unveiled their biggest menu shift in 56 years, in their 56-year history. And last month, they experienced the best sales since 2013. So this is kind of exciting. We don't talk about best sales results much this year, and certainly Subway have been talking about it. They're forecasting now to be able to beat their sales projections by $1 billion. And I'm curious, what do you think they've done here, and what are some of the lessons that restaurants can learn from it?
I love this story, and I love it because many of the changes that Subway made were around improving the quality of the ingredients and the end products, improving the actual bread that the sandwiches go out on, including improving a lot of the meats. And I love that because I think what it tells you is historically there's been sort of this divide between fast food being convenient and valuable or at a very low price, and fast casual, which was maybe a little bit more elevated, but not as convenient and certainly more expensive. And Subway's shattering that by saying, you know what, even fast food should be good. And they are getting response from the consumer saying, yeah, we agree. So the ability to upgrade all the ingredients, make everything better, I think speaks to where the consumer is in terms of desiring higher quality food, desiring higher quality ingredients, desiring things that they perceive to be healthier for them. And all of that is really good news for how Americans eat. So the United Nations Food Systems Summit met this week to discuss how to feed the world in light of climate change and especially population growth. And they touched on how digital innovation in food systems aren't reaching enough people that need them most in the poorer countries. Tell us more about this and what role you think digital innovations have to the wider world around them.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting news around this one. For me, what was interesting was just learning about how farming technologies are quite actually advanced, and they're actually supporting a number of countries around the world. There's 270 million people in hunger across the world. And the other subject was the fact they're expecting the world population to reach something like 9 billion by 2050. And therefore, as a result of these things, food production needs to grow from 70 to 100%, which is huge, isn't it? It's crazy. The food systems that really support this at the moment are largely developed for the world's wealthiest kind of countries. And this summit that the UN put together had said that the technologies are sizable and they're significant, but they're just not reaching everyone. For example, in Africa, there are 33 million smallholder farms that have been given access to technology, but only 42% of them are actually using it. Now, how does this come back home to when I think of this for restaurants and the very kind of similar challenges that we have from a restaurant standpoint in technology? Well, I think it comes down to, it's not about necessarily the advancements of technology and the innovation that exists. It's about the way in which that technology is then utilized and been able to use for its core purpose, but also the simplicity of how it's introduced to restaurant owner operators. All of my friends that run restaurants themselves, they're not the best smartphone users. They're not the people that really warm to technology in the way that perhaps some of the other folks in different industries might. And so I think it's upon all technology providers, no matter which part of the food system that they support, whether it's on the farming side or whether it be more on the restaurant side, to really think and invest in education for restaurants, helping them with their customer success and onboarding processes. And remember that that is one of the reasons why you mentioned Toast earlier have been so successful, is because they do indeed invest in that driver education piece. And it's another big part of what DoorDash are trying to do as well, of course.
And also just making it easy, right? I think applying those frictionless consumer tools that we use in UX UI design for consumer apps, applying those exact same ways of thinking to B2B software tools is extremely important, because the end user isn't always, a sophisticated IT person who can figure it out with enough time. It's often just, people like you and me who are going through the app trying to apply it, and the easier you can make those things, the better.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone, as always, for listening. As ever, we're really interested in hearing your thoughts about the subjects that we've talked about this week. Please put your questions below. Please put your comments. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? And as ever, we'll look forward to speaking to you again next week.